Earth, as it is set up, is a level where there is a high degree of contrast. There is a high degree of duality, meaning there is black and white and up and down and happy and sad and the spectrum in between. And the reason for that is to offer the soul or the being experiencing life on earth the privilege of having a choice. There's an opportunity to have a choice, and that is part of the construct of this level of reality. So without that wide spectrum, there wouldn't be an opportunity for choice. Does that make sense? And so in our reality, there's less of a spectrum. There's still a spectrum, but it's less of a spectrum, if that makes sense.
Yeah, is there a wrong choice?
There are choices that are in harmony with source, and there's choices that are out of harmony with source, but every choice creates evolution. So every choice creates learning and evolution and growth. So over time, through your incarnations, because you do have multiple incarnations, we would say that you are learning, sometimes in a difficult way, how to make choices that are more in alignment with source. But sometimes the only way you know how to do that is to make choices that are not in alignment with source and experience the result of that.
With you, got you. It's brilliant.
It's a process. And much like you go to a buffet and let's say you show up at this buffet and it's full of food that you have never ever tasted before and never chosen before, you only know what you like and what feels good to your body by tasting everything that is present in that buffet, right? So you need to have the full spectrum of experiences, and that's why you have multiple incarnations. You have some incarnations where you know going into it that you're going to make choices that are out of alignment with source, and you're going to experience both in your body, in your energy field, and in your reality the results and the vibrational frequency that is the result of those choices. But you need to experience the full spectrum in order to create the evolution that is the basis of creation.
Could there be like an inertia to like introducing disorganized energy? Like or does like the lighter, higher frequency always have like a stabilizing, grounding, harmonizing?
So we would say that the frequency of source is reality. That's the ultimate reality. And every energetic frequency or reality, quote unquote reality, experience is a better word a better term for it,
Mhm.
would be what you would call illusory. It's a game that you're playing to understand who you are as an aspect of source. So you need to experience what it's like to be quote unquote disconnected from source. You never actually disconnected, but you experience the illusion that you are. So in this reality, some beings choose to experience the disconnection from source. And then when they have what you would call the death experience, there's a reconnection or a reunion with source. And as a result of that, there's an expansion that occurs. So if you think of it this way, if you think of someone in your life that you love a lot, and let's just pretend they're going away for 6 months or whatever and they're leaving. So you love that person and they leave for that time period and you experience what you would call missing that person, and then after the 6 months they come back and there's a reunion. Can you feel in your body how there's an expansion as a result of that experience? There's an expansion of love, there's an expansion of your connection with each other. And that is a good analogy for what souls experience when they decide to have an incarnation where they are quote unquote disconnected from source, and then when they cross back into their remembrance of their connection with source, there's an expansion that occurs as a result of that. There's an evolution and an expansion that occurs as a result of that.
With you, all of this is received very well. I get insight that's just more in alignment with source. Like it flows more easily when you're in this reality or this truth or this understanding.
Well, there's a perception when humans are looking at other humans, there's sometimes a perception that something has gone wrong with another human being's life, right? When they are experiencing chaos or illness or all of these things that are a result of disconnection from source, energetically speaking. So there's a perception that something has gone wrong, when in reality, this being is actually just has a need or a desire to experience what that's like, so that when they return to source, or they return to the remembrance of source, again, the feeling of being connected to source, or the feeling of being an expression of source, is expanded, and there's a greater awareness or wisdom or knowledge about what that means to be an expression of source. But there's a need to experience the disconnection in order to have that realization. So nothing has gone wrong.
This all goes back to your suggestion earlier about control, and that we don't really need to control anything. That's hard to imagine. Could the planet really function if no one sought to influence any sort of control or organization? Or
Well, you have to keep in mind that your greatest influence on another being and on the collective is when you as an individual are connected and reflecting source energy. That has what you would call a domino effect on the collective consciousness, because you're an expression of that, but also the beings around you they will want to know what your secret is. Right? Because you'll be experiencing a greater degree of health and wealth and harmony and wholeness, and they'll want to know what your secret is. And so you'll naturally begin to not only share what you've learned, but just emanate a vibration that helps them reach their own alignment with the source within them. So if every human being was just focused on that, then it would be a very different planet. It would be a very different planet. But instead, most beings feel the need to be constantly controlling something externally, another being, the circumstances of their life. And again, a lot of that has to do with, and we know we're being repetitive, but a lot of that has to do with the need to suppress certain emotional energies, because they don't see the connection between the emotional energy and the perceptions in their own mental landscape, if you will, which are easily shifted when you really devote yourself to it.
interesting. I've heard this notion of we're being lived. Like it sounds to me almost like, trust that source is in control. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but like just when you come in alignment with that, like the control kind of comes through us, although it wouldn't really be control. I guess that kind of takes away
There's a
choice.
flow, right? There's a divine flow. If you think of how your body operates, before your mental perceptions sometimes will start to block the flow of energy. If you just think of a baby, newborn baby, there's no mental constructs that are blocking the flow of energy yet. And so the body is just living harmoniously as a whole. Every organ, every cell, every organ action function is just operating freely, because divine source energy, or life force, or Shakti, or Chi, whatever you want to call it, is flowing without impedance. The impedances begin when the mental constructs begin to form, and then energy begins to be limited or blocked or shifted, and that's what blocks flow. So it blocks flow physiologically or energetically, which leads to the physiology. And then it also, in terms of blocking the energy flow in terms of the circumstances of your life, it begins to do that also, and you just feel again like you need to have this control over everything in order to feel better. There's really no need for control. There's more of a need for flow, and to be in alignment with divine flow, and to notice that you are connected to every other living being, every cell on the planet. You're like an orchestra playing, and so it's just your job to you do you, as they say. You are an expression of the source as it wishes to express through you and as you. So if everyone did that, then it would be like an orchestra playing a beautiful piece of music. But think of it this way: if every player in the orchestra is just playing their own song and not recognizing that they're part of a whole, then what does that sound like? It sounds like chaos. And that's a good description for what's occurring now on the planet in this time. And again, there's a place for it. It's a stage of evolution. So it's not necessarily wrong. It's just that it's time to shift into a new stage where there's more harmony. There's a need for more harmony now.
So in that analogy, is there a conductor as well? The orchestra analogy?
Well, the conductor is source energy.